Hey guys, I was about to tell you which day of the week it is, and I just drew a blank. I think it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, and we are live this time from my house again. Yesterday from home, but today I mean, from the office yesterday. Today from home. So I'm back, and today I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about because I think a lot of us feel hopeless. I think a lot of us are feeling hopeless right now and like we don't matter as far as small businesses go. And I've got somebody on today who's going to talk about how much small businesses matter, not just to your particular community, but to the economy at large. And I think that's something that we really need to talk about as a country. So I'm really excited to have him on. I think you guys can have a lot of questions for him, and you can put those questions in the comments. We'd love to see it. But I'm really excited about this guest. Before we go on, though, I'm going to go back to my shameless plug of Burgers and Bands for suicide prevention. I will tell you, we raised $2,000 over the weekend, which is not the $100,000 we expected because we couldn't have our event. But I want to tell you my favorite story. We raised $1,400 because one of the bands who came last year to play, I think they actually played in May and then in October, which is an unusual thing for us to have happen. But they played in both events, and they are, I think, all sixth graders or maybe sixth and seventh graders. Anyway, they raised $1,400. They did a virtual concert and they raised $1,400. And I am absolutely amazed. They're actually going to be able to fund one of our grants solely through their contribution, which I think is just the coolest thing for a bunch of sixth, seventh, and maybe I think there's an eighth grader in there as well. But that's the coolest thing. So if you guys want to support us, it's burgersandbands.org. We'd really appreciate that. I want to remind you that we are on YouTube, we're on Twitter, and we're on Facebook. We need subscribers at YouTube, though, so please go over and take a minute to hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me a whole lot. So if you could do that, that would be really, really great. And then I want to bring up our guest because we have a man of many talents here. We have Patrick Lee from Spark Business Institute and Chesapeake Think Tank. So, Patrick, how are you?
I am good. I was interesting to hear about the middle school band raising money. That's kind of cool.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah,
It's really I spend a lot of time crying about Burgers and Bands because it touches my heart. But that was really cool, and the kids are very excited, and especially when they found out that the elementary school they were going to was on our list of grants. So they asked, "Can we take that money and put it into that elementary school?" We're like, "Yeah, absolutely." It was perfect. Yeah. So Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, because you do a lot.
Well, that's kind. I tend to be very busy. I actually own two companies. I own Chesapeake Think Tank. That's my business advisory company, and that's where I work directly with small businesses in helping them to, work through whatever they need to work through to thrive. I do a lot of special tools, like we do private advisory boards. That's where business owners get together in a group, non-competing, and help each other grow. And Chesapeake Think Tank is sort of my hands-on business advisory platform. And then I also own the Spark Business Institute, and that's pretty much why I think you have me on today. Spark is a platform for small business advocacy. We are all about reimagining Main Street and reigniting small businesses. And everything is around how small businesses should be the economic engine of this country. And though people will give them that title sort of in name, the belief of that isn't actually there. The policies of this country don't actually support that. And we have not assumed our rightful place in the economic makeup of the United States. And that's something that we should be demanding and we should have.
Right. Well, and it's that passion. You can see it. It's almost like you're having a hard time keeping it in here because you just want to put it out there, right? And it was that passion that really made me interested in talking to you on this subject, because you wrote a piece called The Small Business Revolution. And for me, watching my small businesses, in particular, watching the ones, I'll tell you one that's really bothered me. I have 3 different small retail shops. And one of them can open because he's on the Eastern Shore and he is in at St. Michael's. So he's able to open. two of them can't. One, because they're in Anne Arundel County, they can do curbside. They can't do by appointment only. They can't do anything like that. And Fleet Feet out in Montgomery County, they can't either. Actually, I'm sorry, I forgot one. And there's a fourth one, Howard County. He's not even been allowed to do curbside. So it made me think, what are we doing? We're saying that these businesses mean something, but what do they really mean? So, Patrick, what are we learning about small businesses through all of this, through everything that's happening?
Well, the first thing to recognize is that when our leaders, when the powers that be are looking at small business, they pay lip service to the concept that it's important. And in the aggregate, it is. As a large scale, all of us together, they're worried about us. But they're not worried about us at the individual level. And they're not worried about us at the small geographic level. They're just worried about the overall numbers. Because remember, if you're a politician in a high seat and you're trying to affect things, it's so much easier to affect it by grabbing a Walmart and having it show up, or Target or something like that, than it is to take 20, 25, 30, 40 small businesses and somehow make that have the statistical impact that you want it to have. So when I'm looking at this stuff, what I'm seeing is we're like how chickens are looked at. Chicken farmers, if some chickens get sick, they don't take the chicken and take it to the vet and say, okay, this chicken's sick, fix it. They say,
right.
This flock of chickens, if chickens are a flock, which I don't know, but this flock of chickens, it is potentially compromised because I have some sick chickens. So the veterinarian takes one chicken, generally kills it, does whatever needs to be done to analyze what's wrong with that chicken, and it treats the whole flock. So the individuals don't matter. It's the group of chickens that does.
Right.
You would see the opposite with a thoroughbred horse, right? A thoroughbred horse, it's the horse itself. So,
right.
We as small business owners think of ourselves as a thoroughbred horse. With the amount of time we spend on our business, thinking about our business, working on it, we consider ourselves a thoroughbred horse. But the way we're treated is that we're one of a bunch of chickens and we don't individually matter.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with that. I think it's something that we're seeing. So what can we do? What is the first step in changing that? Or is there a first step?
Well, there is a first step, and it's a mindset step. And this frustrates a lot of folks because, as a small business owner, everything we're about is tactics, right? We're going to try this, we're going to do that, we're going to launch this. And so when you start talking about mindset, that becomes sort of woo-woo, like, yeah, okay, I've heard that. If I think positive, something will happen. But this is really sort of important. If we accept the role that we're handed, by that acceptance, we're legitimizing and allowing the system to be that way. The other piece of the puzzle here is we need to almost, and this is a bad word for a lot of people I know, but we almost need to unionize. As small businesses, we need to come together and be more powerful because of us as a group. And that doesn't necessarily mean, small businesses everywhere. That means small businesses in your community, like on your main street. All the businesses on your main street need to be functionally together, not necessarily, and I'm not trying to knock the chambers of commerce or anything, but we're not talking about together to pass around our business cards and hopefully get some leads. Talking together to advocate and talk about what's really happening and how that main street itself thrives. If every main street does this, right? Because what do you understand? You understand your locale. You don't understand everything else. So if every one of these becomes a thriving main street, that impact in itself is huge.
Right. We didn't talk about this, and I'm so sorry. I should have probably thought about it before I had you on, but I wanted to tell you, you've brought up a good point, because you said you can either accept it or you can try to not unionize, but basically bring people together and come together. So there is a photographer in Annapolis, and she brought together a group of photographers, a lot of them, and took it to the governor actually and said, hey, we really want to, and then took it to Stuart Pittman here in Anne Arundel County and said, there's really no reason we can't do our jobs. And no, we can't do the events. We can't do the weddings, but there's no reason I can't go and take pictures of somebody as long as I practice, say, a safe distance, right? Which is mostly photography is a safe distance. And she has been pushing and this does not have a happy ending. I wish it had a happy ending, but it does tell you a lot about the impact you might have, because she has pushed and pushed and pushed to such a degree that when Anne Arundel County put out their list last week, it went the opposite direction for her, but she tried very hard. They actually listed out some things, but were very careful about not listing specific types of businesses out. And then at the very bottom added a final one that said, no photographers are essential right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly she was making a point. Clearly they were thinking of her when they wrote that, because she has made such a stink. And the truth is, I think they're probably going to start taking pictures, honestly.
Well, and this is the frustrating thing about this whole situation. I don't feel like there's been intelligent conversation. I mean, you have two crises going on right now, right? We have an economic crisis that cannot be overlooked, and we have a health crisis that cannot be overlooked. And somehow it's been politicized into you're either for economics and don't believe in COVID, or you're for lockdown and health and don't recognize that an economic collapse is going to have just as much calamity as the health crisis. And all of these are going on with additional crises in the back, right? We have a mental health crisis coming. We have a social crisis coming. We've got a ton of tangential crises coming in, and we're not allowed to have an intelligent conversation. And small business specifically is not even at the table. Like, we can show you that we can open our business in a way that is, even though quote unquote we're not essential, but in a way that is as good as it possibly could be for protecting the public and allowing for choice. Why can't we have those discussions? Why can't we make a case? I mean, some making a great case, but nobody needs to pay attention, or it's so much easier just to say, let's designate essential, let's designate not, and then we don't have to talk to anybody. Well, if you're a restaurant owner, you are really feeling it right now, right? If you're an antique shop owner, I kept laughing to myself, because when I looked at all the people who were considered essential, the only one I could figure out that they were shutting down was restaurants, but you could do curbside, and antique shops, right? So I guess the antique shop industry is the one who's going to pay for this crisis, because nobody else seems to be shut down, but it sounds like photographers too now, I guess.
Well, yeah. And you know what, truthfully, retail shops, yes, they can do delivery. If they were, this is where we just talked about this before we started. This is where we personally, and we'll go back into the great small business plateau in just a minute, but we personally have to start taking some charge, because yes, retail shops, they can still operate to a certain degree, but if they didn't have an e-commerce site set up, then they can't, right? They're out of luck.
But they're out of luck because of even bigger things. I mean, before this happened, which has been an incredible boon for companies like Amazon and all that, who are set up to take advantage of this type of situation, that the small retailers, they're pretty brick and mortar facing, regardless if they have e-commerce or not, right? They have to come up with reasons why you would visit them. They have to come up with unique ways to attract folks in, because they don't generally have e-commerce. They're not competing with Amazon. So I actually found it sort of a hollow offering to them, like, well, I guess it's time for you to get, e-commerce set up. And how are they going to advertise that, and how are they going to compete? It's not an answer.
No, and you're right, because if you think about it, I'm in marketing. If you think about what we do when we go into a retail shop, the very first thing we talk about is events, right? We're like, you've got to be an event. You have to hold events here in order to get people to want to come. You have to create a community where people want to be a part of it. And if you take that away from them, then suddenly they've got nothing, right? I just looked at the loss. Somebody just gave me numbers this morning that it's $40 billion in event loss this year. And I can guarantee you that doesn't include retail.
Oh, I'm sure it does it. That's paid. That's paid. Event.
Paid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, $40 billion. That is a big number. So it's very scary. So let's talk about, because we could talk about this and we can get scared and we can, be worried about what's going to happen. But I want to talk about, you wrote a book, The Great Small Business Plateau, and you talk about inhibitors for small businesses. So can you go a little bit into that?
Well, here's what happens, and why we came up with the Great Small Business Plateau. Small businesses tend to reach a certain level and then get stuck, and they often don't even know why that is. And it's not like they've intentionally stopped trying to grow or trying to get bigger or whatever. It's just that it happens and they don't know why. And so we were just exploring what that phenomenon looks like, and basically what it means is, and this is one of those. The language around this is one that bothers people, because if I go in a room and I say, okay, folks, how many of you are a lifestyle business? How many of you are a growth business? Everybody's going to raise their hand that they're a growth business. Then if I stop and explain the difference between a lifestyle business and a growth business, and then I say, okay, how many of you are that now, you'll see a whole bunch more go up for lifestyle. So there's a bad connotation around the term lifestyle business. But essentially, your business has systems, and those systems have a certain capacity in them. And that capacity will get full. So, and you may not know when it's full. You may not have been able to trace your capacity, but if you say, okay, I need to put more into production, and you go pay attention to production and that goes up. But in the meantime, the marketing and the sales have dropped down, right? So once again, the capacity stays about the same despite your effort over here. And then you run back over here to move this up and this drops, and it's a constant balancing act, because bottom line is the systems that you have in place are at capacity. So to grow, if you want to get past that plateau, you have two choices. You can either say, all right, I want to grow, so I'm going to willingly change up my systems to build additional capacity. I'm going to bring in extra folks who are experts in particular areas. I'm going to hire that way, or I'm going to add equipment or whatever it is. I'm going to do these things so that the systems have more capacity and we can grow. Or I'm going to stop fighting that, and I'm going to settle at the systems I have, and I'm going to optimize those systems so that this becomes the most profitable that it can be at these capacity levels. And that's a choice that can seem easy. When you ask people, they're almost always looking, I want to grow. But when you look at the drop and the pain that is going to happen while you're shifting those systems and while you're building that, change is hard, and
Right.
it doesn't just go up. There's a drop, there's a norming of your new systems, there's an onboarding of everything, and that can cause a lot of owners to regret the decision that they make there. So our whole thing is to show you what it looks like, show you where your business is, and then explain what would need to happen in each of those choices.
So Patrick, I watched your YouTube channel about this. You did a speech somewhere. I'm not even sure where, but you did a speech. I watched it. You were the one who talked about restaurants in this, right? That with a restaurant, you can create capacity, but how are you doing that? Can you give a little bit of that example? That was for you, right?
Yes, that
Good.
No, you got that right. So here's what that it's easy to explain this whole capacity thing, because folks, it's sometimes hard to see the capacity, right? It's hard to see, like, you're like, well, we could take more orders and we could make more product, or we could serve more people. And you say that, but you don't recognize where the inhibitors are that keep that from happening. So the easiest way to sort of describe that is this. Potential customers can tell, whether it's just, through vibes, they can tell when there's capacity issues or not. Like they're either not getting paid attention to, or the communication isn't quick enough, or whatever. And the best descriptor to show you that is in a restaurant. If you were at Ocean City, Maryland, and you are on the beach and you say, okay, let's get pizza. Let's go to dough rollers, right? And so you walk up there and you look, and there is lines coming out of dough rollers they go down like 4 blocks, double lines going in there. And you look at that, you're not going to eat at dough rollers. You're going to go, you know what? Let's go to, Bull on the Beach, right? You're going to switch up because nobody wants to get in that line. The capacity isn't there for you to eat in a timely fashion. Well, that's an easily visible example, but that's happening all the time in businesses, and they don't even know they're putting that out, right? They don't know that they're broadcasting that we're full.
Right. So I have another question about it, because you talked about this, and I've seen that. I wish I had thought to bring up the screen share to show the way it works and how you come up and then you go down and you go back up. So when people do that, when you have this plateau where you get stuck, right? What does that happen over and over again? As a small, I mean, I'm asking this personally, right? Because I own a small business, and I did that when I first started. I got to a point where I was like, well, that's it. I can't take on another client. So I hired Anastasia, and immediately we went up, right? She was my jack of all trades. We talked about, we talk about inhibitors. Yeah, she's wonderful and she does a lot, but was also my jack of all trades. So then we went up, and then we plateaued a little bit, and we stayed there. And I was going, well, what the heck? What's going on? And we ended up hiring again. We brought on a person for quality control. That was her job. She's in here for quality control. And she's got a specific job. She does it really well. That's what she does. And actually, we didn't go up. I was surprised because we had everything perfect. Well, we made another hire, and suddenly we go back up, right? But will I continue to do that as my business grows? Are we going to find that we do that where we plateau over and over again?
Yes, that's absolutely the case. There's always, it'll vary too. Like the first plateau may simply be personnel, right? Right. I have a bunch of jack of all trades, as you put it, but now it's time for me to bring in some expertise that takes some level of my business beyond where I can imagine it, or, all of these folks who are good at everything, but not experts at anything. Right. Right. So we bring in somebody, and I'll make it up. We bring in a technology person who knows everything there is to know about technology. The next thing you know, your technology capacity is incredible, and this person is providing you with a ton of opportunity. So, you may start with it at personnel, but then let's say that you quadruple your business. You're now hiring, but the hiring now becomes a churn. You hire, and for every dollar you hire at brings in $1, but there's no profit, there's no growth that's sustainable. And you're going, okay, what's this about? Well, it may now be, it's our technology, right? We don't have the right technology to have 50 people in place. Our technology is built for 15 on our staff. Okay. And each one of those happens throughout this. It's a stepping thing. You're going up steps. You hit a plateau, you figure it out, you go up to the next step. The reason why we call it the great small business plateau is that small businesses tend to have some very distinct markers, both in revenue and in which of the issues stop them initially. And if you can get a small business beyond that small business plateau, then it starts becoming much more normal. Like they figured out, okay, now what do we look for? There's enough brains in the mix, and it takes on a different trajectory. And that's, that's the growth business.
So when you talk about markers, does that equal inhibitors? Is a marker, are your inhibitors, where you're looking for your markers in this? Or no?
You froze on me there. I did not hear the question.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry.
That's
so
okay.
What I was asking was, tell us, so the markers so I'm guessing markers and inhibitors are similar, and a similar thing that we're looking for. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct. I mean, they're tied together, but not every business has the same inhibitors affect them, and not every business has the same markers affect them. So remember, we've got so many categories here. Are you a product or a service? Are you a reoccurring revenue model, or are you a transactional model? I mean, there's so many moving parts that what we do know is that the plateau is a phenomenon, but the solutions to the plateau are extremely specific to your business. Okay. So it's hard to predictively say what is going to affect you. But what we do know is that most small business models spend a lot of time being stuck with the transition from personnel who are support staff to personnel who are expert staff. And that is a huge shift. You know, and let's just put it this way. If you're the smartest person in the room, Ann, in your business, and you're trying simply to maximize your time, you know, if I just had more time, this could happen. So you hire folks to support you because they'll take this off your back and they'll take that off your back, and they're going to keep these things running over here while you're still the main brain and productive piece there. That still has a huge limit. But if you're able to bring in folks who aren't just support to you, but they're capable of running their piece of your organization, your business on their own and making it happen, the more of those you have, the more pieces of the business that are running independent and doing their own thing. That provides far more capacity than simply trying to squeeze another hour out of you somewhere in the week.
Right. Well, and it makes you more, I'm trying to remember what I just wrote. I just wrote about, I know. I wrote about Facebook pages and why people need them. And it was such a small thing to talk about, right? It's a small thing. People would say, but I have this great personal brand.
Yeah.
And I said to them, yes, but are you ever going to want to sell your company? Right. And it's a similar thing to what you're saying. If I'm the smartest one in the room and I've got people who can support me, I can't step out of it. Right. I can never step out of it. But, you know, if you build something like you're talking about, where you bring people in and you've got people who are experts in what they do, and you're no longer the smartest person in the room, you're a part of it. You can step out of it. You can maybe sell it. You can maybe, you know, take a month's vacation every year.
Yeah. The worst thing for a business, if you want that business to stand alone, be sellable, do all that, the worst thing is a cult of personality, right? I mean, you know, I think, you know, Tony Robbins, right? Is Tony Robbins' company anything without Tony Robbins other than living off of the all the stuff that he's created and done and reselling it, right? But to get beyond Tony Robbins, that's a cult of personality business. You got to kind of choose, and you may like a cult of personality business, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it has a definite different ability to translate or transform under somebody else's leadership, you know, if you leave, etc. I mean, in the case of Tony Robbins, obviously they just keep what he's already done and play off of that. But if they wanted to do something new without him announcing it, what's the chances of it succeeding?
Right, exactly. So I have a question. When we go forward, as we move forward in a small business, I'm a small business, I move forward, what are the things you think I have to have in place as far as supporting me? Because it occurs to me as you're saying this that, you know, I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly listening to podcasts, I'm always trying to learn. But what are the best ways for us to do that, do you think?
And when you ask that, do you mean within our industry or as our own development?
I think, well, what I kind of leading you down the road of the small business advisory boards. And I mean, it was my first thought, is maybe that's where we should be going. We should be looking at having somebody who's outside of our organization that we can ask these questions of, instead of trying to always look, you know, I'm picking up books that are interesting to me, but I don't know that I'm picking up the right books. Right.
And I'm not sure that picking up the right books is even a good term. I think seeking out new information, both things that back up your biases, but also things that challenge your biases. I think one of the things that we end up doing is finding confirmation bias in how we want to think and saying, see, look, that proves it. When in reality, we need to be open to there being multiple different ways of approaching things and multiple new ideas out there. And so that open-minded approach to information, I think, is key. And then seeking it wherever you need to seek it. Like you like to listen to podcasts and pick up information that way. Some folks read books, some folks watch documentaries, some folks want to be on a private advisory board where they get in a room and they talk with other people. I think all of those are good. What I will tell you is not good, and this is a traditional problem for the small business owner, is you go into your work every day. You put your head down, you slog through that day. Most of it's tactical, most of it's in your own head. And then you go home, you collapse, you get up, you do it again the next day. You are not staying on top of what's happening in your industry. You are not seeing what your clients are seeing. You're just slogging through in your own head. You have got to be able to step out of that, step up a level, and look down on your business on occasion. And I think there's a thing commonly said that says, stop just working in your business. You need to work on your business. And everybody nods and says, yep. But nobody really ever takes it and figures out, well, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do? And truthfully, it means that, it's like you got to clean your palate, right? You got to eat some oyster crackers and swish some water and clear your palate, and then look at it again, not simply keep confirming because you want the easy road here, what's already in your head. That's right. That's a road for getting stuck in a corner.
Well, I'm going to make a confession. So I have given the book away, the E-Myth Revisited. I've given this away probably dozens of times. I feel like I keep saying this. I feel like Oprah. Every time I see somebody, I'm like, you should have this book. It's so great, right? But my 24-year-old, I was walking with him last week, and he works with me. He's Ethan. You've probably talked to him, but he's a very smart kid, and he goes, "So, Mom, I've never seen you work on your business for ASMM as much as you have in the past 8 weeks." And he said, "And I haven't seen as much business come through the door as it has in the past 8 weeks." And I was like, oh. Well, yes, you're right.
I think the funniest thing about this is it works in multiple ways. I had seen somebody comment while we were talking about hard to find balance, but
yes,
balance actually is being able to shut down one part of your brain for a period of time, let it recharge, let it, clear its queue, whatever, before you come back to it. And if we don't consciously start doing that, whether you're meditating, whether you have strict rules of, at 7 o'clock, I no longer am allowed to do this stuff, I must do something else, whatever your system is,
right?
The system that doesn't work is the one where you're sitting at work till 11 o'clock at night, and you're thinking the same thoughts that you started with at 8 a.m. And by the way, you were thinking those thoughts a month ago, and all you're doing is burning your battery out while doing nothing but the same thing. Why does it take so much mental energy and focus and attention to do the same thing that you've been doing for however long that business has been there? We just,
right.
And we think it takes up all our time. Why?
Right. Well, and I think that's why I'm going to actually pull Laura. Laura said, my advisory board really helped me to continually see the contradictions in my behavior and my vision. And I think that's the nice thing about whether it's an advisory board or whether it's networking or whether it's, walking with your son who can point out the things that should be obvious to you.
Yeah.
Having someone who thinks outside of what you think. And it's interesting. In my office, we have Anastasia, and Anastasia is lovely, but she is like my other brain. And so it's easy for me to listen to Anastasia and say, this is what, yes, I'm completely right. This is Anastasia agrees, but I know she's my other brain. So when we hire, we specifically look for people who I can't think of the Enneagram. We look at Enneagram. So before we hire, we're like, we need you to take this Enneagram test, because honestly, we already have 3 achievers in the office. I can't bring in another achiever. I have to bring in somebody who thinks differently than we do. And it's important that you do that. You surround yourself with those sorts of people.
I think we tend to gravitate to temperaments that are like us. And that means that we provide the same limitations to our business and our groups that we bring, right? So we're all going to be right-handed. Nobody's going to be left-handed. And that's not a smart way to build things. It makes you more comfortable. You can sit sort of in place and not feel challenged, but challenge is everything. If you're trying to grow and you're trying to stay on top of things, you need other temperaments.
Right, exactly. All right, let's talk one more minute about the small business revolution because I think it is something that's worth talking about. If you could change anything right now for small businesses, if you could encourage them or inspire them to change anything, what would it be?
It would be this. You all are buying into the agenda of a whole bunch of other folks. So on the political side, you are willing to argue over various social issues that we all know what they are, where you fall on one end, somebody else falls on the other, and therefore we can't be together and all. One of the presidents said, it's the economy, stupid. Well,
Right.
the bottom line here is this. It is the economy. As a small business owner, you have far more in common with the other small business owners around you than you have differences. And we've allowed other folks to write the agendas for us so that we feel that we're in opposition to other folks. You're not. The small business environment, the entrepreneurial environment, has some very major distinguishing pieces to it. And those who are entrepreneurs, those who own small businesses, they live in it, they understand it, they feel it. That is a much greater connection than any of those differences out there. And that's what we need to start thinking from. Our small businesses first, our connection as small business owners first, not which political party do you aspire to, which social issue is your big issue, all of the various other things that we can have opinions about. They're all good. They're all good to have those discussions. As a society, we need to have them, but we should be united around small business. If you watch
Right.
the powers that are lined up against us, they're all united, right?
Right.
The U.S.
Right.
Chamber of Commerce wants our corporations to sell around the world and will do anything to make that happen. And those large corporations, regardless of their founders' political affiliations or not, are all happy with that. I mean, when Bloomberg was running for president, a lot of what he wanted to do doesn't differ that much from what Trump's doing. So
Right.
I'm like, okay, we can pick a personality type we like better, but do either of them benefit us as small business owners? And my answer would be no.
Right.
So I think we need to begin to look past those issues, and we need to unify as small business owners, as entrepreneurs.
I love that. I love that. And I couldn't agree more. And it's absolutely why I brought you on, because I think people need to start looking at that. It's really important. All right. I want to tell people how to get in touch with you. They can find you at sparkbusinessinstitute.com, or they can find you at ChesapeakeThinkTank.com. But I also wanted to go back to the book. How do they get your book?
There's a couple ways. You can write to us and we can send you one, or you can go on to Amazon and you can buy it there.
Okay, awesome. So if they write to you, how do they email you? I didn't have that up there.
Patrick Lee at Chesapeake Think Tank, or Patrick at sparkbusinessinstitute.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. This was great. I do want to talk before we go off. I do want to talk about tomorrow. I have changed up our format here. So it used to be that I was doing 5 days a week of interviews. It got to be a little much, I think, for everybody, but definitely for me, because it takes some time to get it all planned. So I'm doing 2 days a week of interviews, and then 3 days a week, I am going to come on and give you tidbits about marketing, things that I think you can use. They will be very short, 5-10 minutes, but very short bits that you can put into work right now in your business. So tomorrow we're going to talk about empathy in marketing. If you are not using empathy in marketing, you're doing it wrong. It's just as simple as that. You have got to be empathetic to the people who are out there, especially right now. This is more important than ever. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I want to come back, Patrick, and thank you. This was great. I knew it would be. It's always fun to talk to you, and you're love passionate people. I love people who you feel like they're just going to spill it all out because they just care so much. So that's what you are.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming on. I will see everybody tomorrow. I hope everybody's doing well. Don't forget to subscribe. I keep talking to StreamYard about putting up little things so I can say subscribe the whole time we're talking, but they haven't done that yet. So we'll have to work on it. All right. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.